Hello and welcome to another episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at how to use the pen tool in Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and InDesign, latest versions CS6. Now you might be saying, pen tool, is that new? Or I thought that's been there a while, and you're absolutely right. It's been there a while. It's been there for years. It's been in Illustrator since day one. It's been in InDesign since day one. It's been in Photoshop for a very, 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 very long time. And you might be saying, well, why are you now doing a video on this tool that's been around forever? Because a friend of mine just asked me over the weekend, hey, a friend of mine wants to know how to use the pen tool, and I sent them to your site, and you didn't have any videos on how to use the pen tool. And I thought, you're right, I don't have any videos on how to use the pen tool. And for those that need to use it, here's how. Now, I don't use the pen tool very often anymore because the things I used to use it for have been replaced with newer and better ways to do it along the way. But for those that use the pen tool or want to know how to use it or why you would use it, that's what this video is for. Now, whether you're using it in Illustrator to create new art, whether you're using it in InDesign to create new frames, or whether you're using it in Photoshop to trace something in a photo, the tool works the same way across the board. That's the beauty of it. So once you learn how to use the tool in one application, you already know how to use it in the other applications because it works the same way. So let's start with Illustrator, and I'm going to warn you, I'm not an artist, but I'm going to show you how the tool works. And if you're an artist, you'll jump right in and create new art. But if not, I'm going to show you another way to create art. Now, first of all, let's go to where the pen tool is. It's on your tool panel. It's right there. And it has a little arrow, so that means that there are more tools, and I'm just going to click to tear those off. That's an Illustrator specific feature where you can see all the tools on a separate panel that are grouped together. Now, for the pen tool, it really is designed to do two things. Create straight lines and create curves. That's it. That's all it was ever designed to do. Because everything you would ever use it for is either tracing or drawing straight lines or curves. There isn't anything else to draw. It's straight or curved. That's it. So once you learn how to draw straight lines or curves, the other tools in that selection are for manipulating what you've done. So let's go ahead and jump right in. Let's say we want to start with straight lines. Well, when you click, you're plotting a point. And that point is then connected by the next point. Now, if I come over here, in the newer versions of Illustrator, especially in CS6, we have these smart guides that will let me know, hey, if you click right there, it's going to be a straight line. But even if you didn't know that, if you just held down your Shift key and click, that's going to be a straight line. So if I come down here, click, that's going to be a straight line. Even if I don't line it up with the guide, because I'm holding down the Shift key, I'm forcing it to be straight at a 90-degree angle. And same thing here, click, and here, click. So that was creating straight lines. Now, if you want to create curves, how do you do that? Let's come over here and let's say I wanted to create a curve. Instead of clicking, because that's going to create a corner point, you want to create a curved point, a point with handles that can be adjusted. So I'm going to just click and drag. When I click and drag, that is, I'm dragging up because I want my curve to arc up. If I wanted to go down, I drag down. If I wanted to go to the right, I drag to the right. So you drag in the direction you want your curve to go in. Now, when you go to the other point, you're dragging in the opposite direction. So if you start it up, you're going to drag down. If you start it down, you're going to drag up. And since I'm going in the opposite direction, I'm just going to drag straight down. How far down I drag will adjust the curve's depth or how steep it's going to be. And if I come back around to the beginning point and drag up again, I am now closing my object and creating my, in this case, oval. Now, at this point, if I want to manipulate the handles or the curves, or the points, I switch over to the direct selection tool, and that lets me pick up a point and move it around. That's cool. It lets me grab one of the handles and adjust it and pull it out and pull it in and do whatever I want to do to it. That's cool. So the direct selection tool next to your selection tool, that's the one you're going to use for manipulating any of these points you've done to move them around or adjust them. Now then, what are these other ones for? Well, the other one is for the plus sign is for adding more points. So since I'm on a curve, if I just click, it's going to add another curve point. Click, it's going to add another curve point. and then I can continue adjusting. If I click the minus symbol, that will subtract a point. So now it just rejoins everything and takes care of that point. If I click this one, this is your convert point. So it converts it to the opposite of whatever it is. If it's a curve point, converts it to a corner point. If it's a corner point, it lets you convert it to a curve point. So for example, if we go here and we click, it converts that into a corner point. So the lines are kind of like going in at a corner. And if I were to continue doing that, I would end up with this. Basically, no more curves because I just converted each curve point into a corner. Now, how does it work in the opposite direction? You click and drag. You drag your handles back out and you drag in the direction that your path is going in. So it's clockwise. I just drag clockwise, I get my curves back. Now, how would you draw curves and straight lines at the same time? Well, obviously if I click and click, that's going to be a corner to corner straight line. If I want my next one to be a curve, then I click and drag. So this is how you would create your curves. And if you click, 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 then you're going to get your corners. And click and drag, you're going to get your curves. Click and drag, you're going to get your curves. And then with the direct selection tool, you can pick up the points, manipulate them, manipulate the handles, get it adjusted the way you want. With the removal tool, you can remove a point you no longer need. And with the convert, you can convert a point into the opposite of what it is. You've learned everything there is to know about the pen tool, with maybe one or two exceptions. For example, if you hold down your Option or Alt key, it allows you to manipulate one handle as opposed to both handles at the same time. And here, I didn't really want to go that far, but that's really it. That's the pen tool in a nutshell. Straight lines, curves, click or drag, add, subtract, convert. You have now learned how to use the pen tool in every Adobe application. All right, so now let's take it up a notch. Let's go ahead and say we want to use it to, since I can't draw, let's say we want to get rid of all this. And now we're going to go File, Place, and we're going to go ahead and grab a photograph. Now this photograph came in at actual size, so we're going to zoom out a little bit here. And we're just going to scale it down. So I'm just going to go back to my selection tool, and we'll scale it down a bit to fit on the page. Okay, great. So now we've got it scaled down. We can zoom back into it, and we can deselect it. We don't need to select it for this next task. Now the question becomes, how would I trace this? How would I draw my own flower if I want to create my own artwork and fill it with my own colors? Well, just what you learned. So let's go back to the pen tool. Where you start around one of these petals, Illustrator could care less. It's up to you. So I'm going to start here at the top. Now the question becomes, well, how perfect do you want it to be? Do you want all those little crevices, all those little points? Yes or no? And if the answer is yes, then you're going to zoom in. You're going to do a lot of clicking and dragging and making sure it's perfectly around that object. If the answer is no, meaning you want your object to be a little smoother, a little more real, or I shouldn't say real, a little more natural from a vector standpoint, then you're not going to create as many points. You're just going to smooth it all out as if you had drawn it yourself, which you're about to. So let's go ahead and say that I'm going to smooth this out. So I'm going to drag in the direction that I want my curve to go in. Now the question is, where do I put my next point? Do I put it down here at the bottom? Do I put it over here? Where do I put my next point? And that really, the easiest answer to that is you place your next point where the direction changes. So if you were plotting along a straight line, then it would be click, click to the next point because it's a straight line. But if you get to the next point and then it sharply goes to another direction, that's where your next point would be. So in the shape of a curve, I could just point my next point at the bottom and curve out that handle if I wanted to, and it would be curved out. Or I could say, maybe I'm going to do it in fourths, so I can come over here and drag out that next handle and curve it that way. And by the way, we're going to take out the fill for this. There we go. And then I can come down here, which I assume is the bottom, click, And then I can come here and again, drag out. And then come here and, oops, I meant to drag out. Let's undo. There we go. And drag out. And again, this is where the Option key is going to come in handy because I'm going to want to adjust these handles a little bit differently here. Let's adjust that one in. Let's pull that one almost to a corner. Pull that one in. And then we can maybe pull this one out a little. And we can get our shape just about right. Maybe move that point down. And we got it. Okay, so maybe this one comes out just a little bit more. And that is my shape. So now that I've got that shape, what can I do with it? Well, first of all, I have a fill and stroke because now I'm in Illustrator. I'm doing regular Illustrator stuff. So I can say that, you know what? I don't want it to have that black line around. Let's take the black line away, but let's go back to the fill. And perhaps we go over to our gradients. Maybe in our swatches here. And we just go grab maybe a nice orange color. Perhaps we want to create a nice gradient color. There we go. I kind of like that. And we can use the gradient tool, I believe, to adjust where that radius will be. And there we go. How far out that goes. I love the new gradient tool, by the way. And we can even tilt it and have it go in a different direction if this were a linear gradient. All right, so there we go. We've got our new petal. And what we're going to do, actually, I'm going to take that one more step here. The next thing I'm going to do is, what about this yellow thing in between? So let's go ahead and trace that. Let's deselect. And let's go ahead and just assume that we don't want every little pit of this. But let's say we want a lot of them. So we're just going to click, 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 click. And again, this is you just clicking away, you know, making this whatever you want. And if you want curves, you would drag. If you want straight lines, you click. Oops, and I don't want that to be connected at all to the other shape. And I'm having to guess because the other shape's in the way. But there we go. So there's my new shape, and it filled it in with the last color I used. This time I'm just going to fill it in with yellow. Now that I've got that new shape, what I'm going to do is, since I'm in Illustrator, I can apply any effects on this I want. So I can go ahead and say I want to distort that. I want to roughen it. Now here we'll preview this. You know, roughen it a little bit, kind of make it more jaggedy than what I created. But since it's a flower, we also want it to be softer. So let's go to our effects menu one more time, and we'll come down to feather it. And again, we can preview that and make it nice and soft. There we go, just like a real flower. So we click OK, and we've got our one petal and one inside thingy. Now let's get rid of the actual photo. So I'm going to select the photo and delete it. Because we don't need the photo anymore for this, we're just going to go ahead and select the first petal. We'll grab our rotation tool. The rotation tool always starts in the middle of the object. I'm going to say, no, 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 rotate it from the bottom here. I'll just click. And now I'll hold down my Option or Alt key and start to tilt it. Because if you hold down that key when you tilt it, that will make a copy. So let's hold down the Option or Alt key and start tilting this. Great. And now that I've done one, all I have to do is just keep repeating it. So I can go up to my object menu, transform, transform again. And that's Command D on the Mac, Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D, and there we are. You can do this. It's not that hard. And if I wanted one more, I could, Command D again, and it will give me one more kind of in between there. Let's see what that looks like. Command D. Nah, I'll keep it that way. Okay, so this could be your finished piece of art if that's all you wanted. But I'm going to take it up a notch since we're going to show the other applications. So I'm going to select all of this. I'm going to go back to my selection tool here, move it over, hold down my Option or Alt key and duplicate it. So we'll just drag another copy. Now we're going to select the yellow piece in the middle and just get rid of it. Then we're going to select all the pieces that are left over. And we're going to use the new shape builder tool. And we can kind of like use the shape builder tool to kind of join these shapes together. Great. We're just going to create one big flower shape, if that's what we want to call it. All right, so now we got our flower shape, and we're just going to say that it has just a, actually it has no fill, and it has a, we can give it any color stroke. Now that we've got that, what's the point of this? At this point, you can now copy this shape. So Command C or Edit Copy. And then we're going to head over to InDesign, where I've got just an empty document sitting here, and we're just going to go Edit, Paste. Because InDesign and Illustrator have this relationship that if you create paths in one, you can use those paths in another. So at this point, that is now a custom frame. I can now fill that with a photo or text. So for example, if I were to go to File and Place and go find a photo here, let's go in, see if I've got some photos here. I'm sure I do. And we'll go ahead and grab, let's see here. I think this is one we'll use. Actually, that's one. We'll use that one. All right, so we'll place Gina in there, and then we can just move Gina around in the photo, or in the frame, I should say. So using it to place an image, not hard at all, because it is now a custom frame with a custom shape. Let's undo that. Grab our type tool. And when we click into it, it is now a frame for text. So at this point, you can just simply type in your text, place your text. I'm just going to use placeholder text for this for now. And now my text is in the shape of a flower. And that is still a frame, by the way, that can be filled with a color. So I can say, you know what, take that green that we gave it and make that the background color, or make it kind of yellow as the background color. And maybe tone down the tint of that just a bit. There we go, so it's not so bright, so yellow. But there you are. So now, whether I created that with Illustrator or whether I came to the pen tool inside InDesign, I would have the exact same ability to go ahead and create that shape. But it was just easier in Illustrator because I could easily trace something. Now, one more stop. Let's head over to Photoshop. And in Photoshop, in this case, I'm not drawing something, I'm going to trace something. Let's trace the football. So we go to Photoshop's pen tool, which is right there, and it works the exact same way. Wherever you want to start, you drag or you click, and you are clicking and dragging where it changes direction. But you're saying, well, why are you drawing around the football? The football is kind of a photo, it's already there. Photoshop's for photos. Why would you do this? This is the way, believe it or not, that many people used to, and maybe in some cases still do to this day, select objects in Photoshop, especially if those objects are not people with hair. If you're just selecting objects that are, hard edges, this tool becomes very useful for that. So now if we hold down on the pen tool there, we get the same tools for converting. We also have the same direct select tool, so we can now select that path. We can fix the points that I didn't place properly. There we go. And we can adjust the handles to get kind of more curves where we need them to be. Now, once you're done, why would you do this in Photoshop? Because in Photoshop, you have a paths panel. That's the work path we just created. We can go ahead and save that path so we can use it over and over again. So we can call this football. And now that we have that path, anytime we need to make a selection using that path, we just come over to it. The easiest way is hold down your Command key on Mac, Control key on Windows, and just click. Now you've made a selection based on that path, and that path is always there once you save it to continue making selections from. You can stroke the path. You can apply text around that path. You can do whatever you need to do around the shape of that football. And of course, now that you've selected the football, you can duplicate it onto its own layer. You can then do whatever you need to do with a copy of your football, get rid of the background, whatever else you want to do. So that's how you use the pen tool in Illustrator, InDesign, and Photoshop, and the reasons why you would in those programs. Now, obviously, if I wanted to select that football, quick select would be my way to go because it would be so easy. But for those that need the pen tool for other reasons, that's how you use it. That's it for this episode of the Adobe Creative Suite podcast. My name is Terry White. Thanks, Jason Likens, for suggesting this topic. We'll talk to you next time. Thanks again.